It's 4:19 a.m. on the 10th of November 2025. The night sky over the Caribbean is dark and heavy, and the US carrier USS Gerald R moves through the water with steady power. Inside the command center, a sharp alarm cuts through the quiet. A radar tech freezes for half a second as a strange spike flashes across his screen. It is not weather, not a bird, not friendly traffic. It comes in fast, low, and too clean to ignore. The room shifts from routine to tension in seconds. Officers lean forward, voices go low, and everyone watches the same drifting signal. The Ford keeps pushing near the Venezuelan coast, but the contact keeps coming. No one knows if it is a drone, bad data, or something more serious. Another alarm hits, longer this time, filling the steel walls with a deep buzz. The ship holds its pace, but the crew feels the weight of every second. On the radar screen, the unknown contact blinks again, brighter than before, and then it starts moving in a straight line toward the carrier. The tech swallows hard. Whatever it is not slowing down. The signal racing toward the Ford is not happening in a quiet ocean. It is happening in one of the most sensitive zones in the Western Hemisphere. The Caribbean may look calm on a map, but every mile here is watched, judged, and politically loaded. For decades, the US saw these waters as stable. But on the 10th of November 2025, that confidence is gone. The Ford is not here for a simple patrol. It is here because the balance around Venezuela has shifted, and Washington cannot ignore it. Venezuela now fields one of the strongest military setups in Latin America. Its Su-30 fighters carry long-range Kh-31 missiles that can fire from safe distance. S-300VM launchers create a thick shield over the coast. Drone teams operate small but dangerous kamikaze models. And below the surface, Type 209 submarines move through shallow water where even modern US sonar struggles. None of these systems can destroy a carrier alone, but together they force the Ford to stay alert. Russia's silent support makes the situation even heavier. Their satellites can track large ships across open water. Their electronic warfare systems can bend or distort radar pictures, turning simple signals into threats the crew cannot immediately read. And if tensions rise, Moscow could help Caracas strengthen its coastal defenses with faster missiles and more capable radar. This is why one strange signal can send the Ford into high focus within seconds. For the sailors on board, this pressure is real. They know they are sailing close to a coastline packed with sensors and launch sites. Every delay can look weak. Every fast move can look hostile. The command center speaks in short, calm bursts, trying to keep control while knowing the room for error is almost zero. The moment the contact locks into a straight line toward the Ford, the bridge shifts from calm to alert. The radar tech calls it again, louder, and the officer of the deck steps close to the screen. The signal is small, fast, and steady. Random reflections bounce around. This one stays solid. That alone puts weight on the room. Above the ship, the E-2D sees the same track and sends a warning. The Ford moves to condition 3. Inside, the change is instant. Sailors walk faster. Hatches close. Voices turn short and controlled. The command center feels tighter, like the walls moved an inch closer. One radar tech zooms in until the image almost breaks apart. He taps the console, hoping the contact will drift. It doesn't. Straight lines here usually mean a real operator, not noise. He wipes his forehead and keeps going. On the flight deck, 2F divided by A-18 seconds roll into launch spots. Their pilots wait in cold cockpits, helmets down, hands steady. The deck crew works fast, chains off, checks done, tractors rolling away. No one knows if the jets will launch, but everyone knows they might. In the electronic warfare room, a new pulse rises from the Venezuelan coast. It bends the radar picture for just a second. The operators lean forward. 1 second can hide a drone or mask a missile. They adjust filters, trying to clear the screen before the next update. Then another track appears, higher and slower. The E-2D flags it as a possible drone group. The word swarm moves through the command center. No panic, but every person knows swarms are trouble because of numbers, not size. The first contact drops lower, skimming closer to the waves. The CIWS turns but holds its fire. The Ford needs a clear ID. One wrong burst in this region could spark something far larger than a simple intercept. For a long stretch of seconds, the contact keeps its heading straight toward the carrier. The radar tech calls the distance again, his voice tight. The officer of the deck watches without blinking. The room feels warm, the air heavy, every display bright. The contact dips even lower, reaching the point where the ship must choose: act now or wait one more second. Out here, 1 second decides the line between caution and conflict. And right now, the Ford is standing exactly on that line. The Ford moves into deeper tension as the contact keeps closing in. The command center lights feel brighter now, cutting through the dark steel around the crew. A sharp alarm hits again, shorter but higher, pushing everyone to focus. The officer of the deck leans closer. The signal is not slowing or drifting. It is locked in and coming toward the ship with intent. Outside, the sea looks calm, which only makes the threat feel stronger. For a moment, the ocean is silent, and that silence makes the next radar update hit like a punch. The display shows the first contact dipping even lower. A second faint return forms behind it. The E-2D calls the bridge with a quick message: possible two-vehicle setup. That wording matters. Two tracks mean planning, not noise. In the electronic warfare room, a new pulse rises from the Venezuelan coast. It is stronger than the earlier one and spreads across a wider band. The team works fast to keep the picture clear. One operator says it looks like a coastal radar warming up. They cannot confirm it, but the pressure rises. When a land-based system lights up, a carrier group has no space to relax. On the flight deck, the first F divided by A-18 powers up. Heat shimmers behind the jet as the engine roars. The deck crew moves with faster hand signals, knowing a launch could come without warning. Another jet rolls into place, engines humming like a steady drum across the deck. Inside, the first contact drops low, almost skimming the waves. Low tracks are harder to read. The techs adjust filters, fighting interference while trying to keep the image stable. Every angle counts, the tactical action officer says quietly. 5 degrees can change everything. The Ford makes a small course shift, almost invisible outside but important for its defenses. Then the second track brightens. The E-2D marks it again, calling it a likely drone. 2 contacts, one low, one high. The crew feels the pattern forming. The room tightens. Shoulders rise. No one talks unless needed. The first contact reaches the decision line again. The CIWS follows it smoothly, waiting for permission it still does not have. The ship holds fire. A wrong shot here could start something no one wants. If you were watching this contact drop toward the carrier, would you fire now or hold one more second? Press 1 to fire, 9 to wait. What looked like the start of a real attack begins to shift. 2 tracks, one low and one high, had pushed the Ford into full focus. But on the next radar sweep, the first contact twitches, jumping slightly, then dropping again. Not smooth, not controlled, more like a flicker. The E-2D sees the same movement and flags it as irregular. That alone changes the mood in the room. In the electronic warfare space, another pulse rises from the Venezuelan coast. This one bends the radar picture just long enough to make the signal look stronger. One operator finally says it could be a mirror. A reflection off the water mixed with coastal interference, making a small return look like 2 separate objects. The second track, the one marked as a possible drone group, starts to fade at the edges. The E-2D calls back in to confirm the weakening signal. It might not be a drone at all. It might just be the same reflection stretching across the surface. But the first contact keeps moving. Even if it is only an echo, the Ford cannot assume it is harmless. The rule is simple. Treat everything as real until it is proven false. No one on this ship wants to be the person who guessed wrong. That is the twist. The danger right now is not a strike. It is the confusion, noise, reflections, and interference blending together and turning the radar picture into something that looks like an attack. The crew does not know how long the false signal will last. They do not know if a real drone could hide under it. All they know is that the radar may be lying. If you were here, would you trust the signal or your instinct? Press 1 for signal, 9 for instinct. The next radar sweep hits, and the tension inside the Ford tightens fast. The first contact keeps coming in low and steady. Real or reflection, it is close enough to force the carrier into full focus. The command center goes silent, except for the steady beeps rolling across the consoles. The officer of the deck leans toward the display. "Watch the next sweep," he says, his voice low but sharp. The sweep updates. The contact drops again, almost brushing the waves. Low tracks are the hardest to read. Sea clutter bends them, hides them, twists their shape. One moment they look real. The next, they look like noise. The CIWS moves with the target, smooth and steady, but still holds fire. Firing at the wrong moment could turn one confused blip into a crisis for the entire region. On the flight deck, both F, divided by A-18 seconds, remain at full readiness. Heat rises behind their engines, shaking the air. The deck crew stands frozen beside the catapult rails, waiting for a launch order that could come without warning. The only sounds outside are the wind, the engines, and the deep hum of the carrier pushing through the water. In the electronic warfare room, another pulse hits. Stronger, wider. It bends the radar picture for just half a second, enough to twist the contact into a different shape. One operator checks his screen twice. "Someone's boosting power," he says quietly. "Maybe a coastal radar switching modes. Maybe someone hiding inside the interference." The team works fast to stabilize the picture before the next sweep arrives. The contact reaches the decision line again. This is the line the Ford trains for. Fire too early and risk starting something huge. Wait too long and a real drone could slip inside the defensive ring. The radar tech calls the distance with a tight voice. The contact dips lower, flickers, then freezes. The E-2D calls in. Signal unstable. Could be mirrored. Cannot confirm. Uncertainty is its own danger. The room holds still. 1 second, 2, 3. The contact does not move. It sits frozen, like a reflection trapped between two surfaces. Not gone, not confirmed, just stuck. The command center exhales, but no one relaxes. A frozen track can hide something real behind it. The crew keeps watching, waiting for any shift, any twitch, any hint of truth in the noise. If you were here, staring at a frozen signal that could be harmless, or a cover for something moving right behind it, would you call it safe or stay alert? Press 1 to call it safe, 9 to stay alert. The frozen signal stays on the Ford's radar longer than anyone expects. The crew waits for it to shift or fade, but on the next sweep, it simply disappears. One moment it's there, the next it's gone. The radar tech watches the empty grid, waiting for it to return, but nothing moves. The officer of the deck checks one more cycle before stepping back, though no one lowers their guard. The Ford remains at full readiness. A mirrored signal almost pushed the carrier toward a real defensive shot, and that weighs on the room. Tonight's threat wasn't a missile or a drone, it was confusion. Shallow water reflections mixed with a coastal pulse that hit at the worst moment. The E-2D sends a final note, likely reflection. But likely doesn't feel safe out here. The tactical action officer reminds the crew that false tracks can hide real ones, and every choice they made tonight was watched by people far beyond the ship. Drone teams now know the Ford's hesitation window. Electronic units can study how the radar picture bends. Rivals can learn how a carrier group reacts under pressure. On deck, the F, divided by A, 18 seconds roll back into standby as engines cool. Steam fades from the rails, but the tension stays. Everyone knows this was a test, planned or not, of how fast the Ford can read truth from noise. For the US, tonight shows how cheap tools, drones, interference, reflections can force a massive ship to run at full alert. For Venezuela, it proves their coastline can shape the fight without firing. And for Russia, it shows how one electronic push can twist the picture for a major navy. The Caribbean is no longer quiet. The Ford will stay on station, but every sailor knows the margin for error is thin. One real drone or one bad read, and this night could have ended very differently. If you were watching, would you call this a warning or the start of something bigger? Press 1 for warning, 9 for bigger.